Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and today we're going to go over that very viral Twitter thread, that phase when you start hating your girlfriend. But before I get into that, thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. It's been awesome to have your support, and I'm super grateful because without you guys, I wouldn't be here. And stay tuned to the end of this where I go over the origins of the expression crocodile tears. It is actually fairly relevant to what I'm talking about here. But back to that viral Twitter thread. I'd already made a couple shorter videos about this, but I thought it would be a good idea to expand on this topic. So when I saw that Twitter thread, the very first thing I thought was, that sounds like a lot like a narcissistic guy's devaluing phase of a woman. Now, to be very clear, there are female narcissists too that also devalue, and narcissistic people are not the only kinds of people to do this. Emotionally immature people can do it. Also, people with an avoidant attachment style may do this too. Now, narcissistic people notoriously have a dismissive avoidant attachment style, but let's go over what a narcissistic person's devaluing phase looks like. And it begins with the love bombing, of course. And I'm going to say narcissistic guy because that was the gender in the thread. But remember, narcissistic women can do this too. So the guy will love bomb the woman, and he will mirror her likes and dislikes. And in the beginning, the woman makes the guy feel awesome about himself. He will love how she makes him feel. But over time, he can't idealize her as he did in the beginning. He will see that she's not perfect, and she will no longer work as the source of supply that she did in the beginning. So then he will switch to devaluing her. And the devaluing phase, he will get a lot of negative supply. And the negative supply will be more powerful than the positive supply from that woman. So what does devaluing look like? It looks like constant criticism. It looks like belittling. It looks like always finding faults and flaws. It looks like constant accusations. It looks like always being guilty of something. And there's just never a dull moment with it. It makes the woman always on edge. This is where the walking on eggshells things comes from, because he will switch from loving and caring one minute to devaluing and unpredictable the next. And the result is the woman can't get comfortable. So also remember, the accusations are often confessions of what the narcissistic person is doing themselves. Remember that too. So that's what the devaluing phase will look like, because it makes them feel powerful to do so. They enjoy the negative reactions their devaluing gives them. So when they devalue you, and then you give a negative response, or feel triggered, or start to jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain, all of that makes the narcissistic guy feel superior and makes him feel powerful, which gives him narcissistic supply. That's the game plan here. Now, of course, the antidote is to not jade, justify, argue, defend, or explain, and to not get into emotional engagements with them. But of course, ultimately, it's to not deal with narcissistic people, period. But that's the devaluing phase there. The other side of the devaluing phase is the narcissistic guy will play emotional hot potato. Say if they're criticized or called out for something, they will get a narcissistic injury, and they want to get rid of those uncomfortable emotions. And so they will offload them as quickly as possible, and they will make you feel like what they were feeling on the inside, so they don't have to feel it. So sometimes the belittling is to make you feel how they are feeling. So they offload those negative feelings onto you so they don't have to feel them themselves. I think the devaluing phase is a combination of both of those two things. But either way, it's not very pleasant, and the result is the same for the person on the receiving end. Now, like I said though, narcissistic people, not the only kinds of people to do this. There was a guy who commented on one of my TikTok videos that said he had an avoidant attachment style, and I was grateful for him because he did give some interesting feedback. Most of the other feedback I got from many guys was just criticism and attacking me, which wasn't really very helpful. But this guy said he had an avoidant attachment style, and either one of two things would happen. Either he would begin to think the woman wasn't right for him, so then he would self-sabotage the relationship, or he would begin to think the opposite, that he wasn't good enough for her, but then the result would be the same. It would be another way to self-sabotage. But to me, both of those things are an example of a fear of intimacy and a fear of getting hurt. So when you have an avoidant attachment style and you have a fear of intimacy, it can come out in many different ways. But ultimately, it's to avoid those uncomfortable feelings. And whatever rationalization you use to get to it, the result is often the same. So if you have an avoidant attachment style, and to be very clear, just because you have an avoidant attachment style does not make you a narcissist. It doesn't. However, when you have the avoidant attachment style, awareness of your attachment style is key, and your goal would be to work towards having a secure attachment. It's certainly not easy, but when you catch yourself thinking things like that, oh, this girl isn't right for me, or I'm going to self-sabotage, or I'm not good enough for her, all things to take note of. Now, sometimes the girl isn't right for you, and then you should just end the relationship. And that was part of the problem with that Twitter thread, which was they weren't necessarily doing that. Now, some of them were saying they were going to pick fights so they could have an excuse to end the relationship, but at least if you're not into the person, end the relationship. But narcissistic people don't normally like to do that because they want to keep you on the back burner so they can use you as a source of supply. And the other thing to note here is when the narcissistic person is devaluing you and you get into these back and forth fights, they can use it as an excuse to get out of there and either cheat or cultivate new sources of supply. It becomes a convenient way to escape the relationship temporarily. This is something that I've seen a lot of narcissistic people do, so they can find new sources of supply, cultivate new sources of supply, or cheat. And then when they're done with that, if they do ever become done, and if they don't discard you, they will circle back around to you. But remember this, if you take narcissistic people back, the cycle of abuse will just repeat faster, where the love bombing will be even shorter than before, and the devaluing will be much more intense, and you will get to a discard much faster as well. But those are the things that happen here, whether it's a narcissistic person with a dismissive avoidant attachment style, an avoidant attachment style, or just someone who's emotionally immature. That's the breakdown here of this whole thing. And again, if someone's not into a person anymore, the adult thing to do is to just break up. But as you saw in the thread, that isn't normally what happened. Some people said, oh, this was just a joke. But to which I would say, there's usually 50% truth in jest. So I wanted to go over this because it's gotten a lot of traction already. But I wanted to explain further what the devaluing phase looks like so that if it's happening to you, you can recognize it and then act accordingly. Because it certainly isn't very pleasant. So again, if in the narcissistic person's case, if you're being belittled, constantly criticized, constantly accused, always guilty of something, being controlled, all of your flaws are being pointed out constantly, and overall, you're just not feeling very good about yourself around this person, don't ignore that. The energy of that does not lie. And if you're walking on eggshells, don't ignore that either. If they're loving 1 minute and devaluing the next, don't ignore that. Take action. Usually in this case, going no contact is the way. Breaking up, getting out of there. Although I do know that's not always possible. Sometimes it's a marriage. Sometimes there's kids involved. And God forbid, if there's other forms of abuse involved, you do have to be safe. And you do have to put your safety first and foremost and make a plan to leave, because that can sometimes be a very dangerous situation. But as promised, I do want to go over what crocodile tears are and where they came from. And I didn't know this, and I'm an animal guy too. I still didn't know. But they say when a crocodile is eating, it will cry and it will shed tears. But the point of saying crocodile tears is not authentic tears, not genuine tears. So someone's faking it. So when a crocodile is eating, he's having a blast eating. But the tears are meaningless. They don't mean a thing. They are not authentic. So that's the origins of crocodile tears. I thought that was pretty interesting. But if you got this far, please remember to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with someone that is being devalued right now, or someone who can identify with what I talked about here. You could really help them out if you show them this video. So again, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.